Hello and welcome back to One Chord a Week. This is Andre Tonelli, and I know last week I said I would do the altered dominant video, which is probably going to be the last of the series. It's going to be a big video, and I saved it for last because I wanted to have all the tools you need to really understand those chords, which are not complicated, but they have quite a bit of theory behind them, and I thought if I leave them for last, then you would have gone through the whole series and you have familiarized yourself with 9s, 11s, and 5ths, and the 7ths, and all those intervals, and then it would be easier to look at all these chords at once. And I was going to do that today, but then just last night I realized that I hadn't covered this specific chord, and so I decided to add it at the last minute, and so we will save those altered chords for next week. And today I'm going to show you this chord, which is kind of cool actually. So the chord is the minor 9 major 7th, and of course it's derived from the regular minor major 7th chord. Here's a link to that. We looked at that kind of at the beginning of this whole series, and as you know, I haven't followed any specific order so as not to make it boring. We didn't start from triads and then up to 7th chords and then extensions, but I kind of mixed it up a bit. But if you want to go back and watch that video, I think it will be useful if you're not familiar with the basis for this chord, which is indeed a minor chord with a major 7th, but with the added 9th. So this chord to me has a very strange sound, but beautiful in a way. And I've actually used it not too long ago because I'm working on a project which by the time you're watching this video, this will probably already have been released, but right now I can't talk about it. So just to make sure. And I've used it as the main chord for a melody in that project. And so it is a beautiful chord, not something you will use all the time, of course, but I think you'll be able to find examples of it in jazz, of course, but also in kind of, sometimes atmospheric music, like it could be on a TV series or movie soundtrack, and as soon as you hear it, you'll know what I mean. So actually, let's move right into the formula and then to the sound section so you can actually see what it sounds like. The minor 9 major 7th chord comes, of course, from a minor triad to begin with. And here's a video to the minor triad. And then on top of that, we'll add the major 7th, which is the minor major 7th I already discussed. And then we'll add the 9th. Okay, so let's begin with the very basic minor triad, which is C, of course, the root, to E flat, which is our minor 3rd, and G, which is the 5th. This is the minor triad to begin with. Then we go to the major 7th, which is B. And again, the major 7th is always found 1/2 step below the root. So C, E flat, G, B. And it already sounds pretty weird, right? As we would expect from a minor major 7th. And then on top of that, we add the D, which is the 9th. And the 9th is 1 whole step above the root. And here's the whole formula. Root C, minor 3rd, E flat, perfect 5th, G, major 7th, B, and major 9th, D, which is the same as a major 2nd. And now let's see what it sounds like. So you can hear it sounds pretty beautiful actually, and it sounds mellower and rounder than the regular minor major 7th. And that's something I find that often happens with 9s or 2nds, it's the same thing. They do tend to round up a spiky or edgy chord, and the minor major 7th, as you remember from that video, is kind of edgy. And I can demonstrate it probably this way. I could play the same chord I just played for you, but if I hold on to the last string, it would be a regular minor major 7th. Okay, and then you'll hear what happens when I hit the last string, that D, what effect it has on the chord. So this is just a regular minor major 7th. And here's with the D. Right, so that D adds a new dimension to it, and to me it makes it possible, for example, for me to consider this chord as a true tonic chord. So I could actually start a composition or a song or a melody with this chord and then play on top of it. Of course, these differences are subtle. It's not like one huge difference between a minor major 7th and a minor 9 major 7th, but subtlety and detail is really what it's all about when it comes to writing music or composing or improvising. So it's certainly a good color. And don't forget also that these chords, you don't actually have to play them, right? You can just know they exist, you can know they have a sound, you can interiorize the sound, put it in your ear, and then you can always imply it by using those notes. So even if I'm playing just a regular minor C chord, I could improvise on top of it by focusing, right? I'm focusing on those notes that I would find in a minor 9 major 7 chord, which maybe I can't play right there because maybe my instrumentation doesn't allow it, or maybe I'm using too much distortion, or maybe I'm using whatever, and I can't quite use that chord, or I don't want to give it away yet, you know, I want to be more subtle with it. Then I could just play a regular minor chord, which we all play all the time. And instead of playing the usual notes, I could say, well, let me just try to imply these more complex chords, such as the minor 9 major 7th. That's why I've been doing for so many weeks now with this chord. That's why I've been focusing so much on formulas. And you might think that's maybe a bit boring, right? But then you'll understand how important it is to not only just know how to play a chord, but actually to know how it's built and to know the focus and the function of each note. Because a chord is just an idea, right? A chord is just a musical idea condensed in time. You play all the notes at once. But it doesn't mean that's the only way you can manage it. You know, you can actually imply chords simply by adding notes here and there that would form a chord. And so that's why I've been pretty I've been pretty strict with formulas and you learning them, because it's very important. And that's it. So let's see how you can play it on the fretboard, and then you can get started improvising with it. For the first position, we'll play it here on the 3rd fret of the 5th string, where we have our root. And then on the 1st fret of the 4th string, we have our minor 3rd. And then we reach the major 7th on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. And here, you can already hear that sound. And then let's add the 9th, of course, which we do need in a minor 9 major 7th chord. And it's here on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. And this is our first position. You notice this position specifically does not have a G. The 5th, it's fine. We can certainly drop the G and it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, in this next position, we'll drop the root, which is something I don't often do, but this chord doesn't have that many fingerings for it. So in this one, I'm going to use one without the root, which is no problem at all, because usually the root is assumed and is understood by whatever the other instruments are playing, all right? Or even just by the way you improvise on top. If you consider the root to be C, then it will be felt as C. And here's how we're going to play it. It's pretty simple. We make this little stair position here. You see we go one step down on each string. And so we play the 8th fret with the little finger on the 5th string. That's our E flat, which is the minor 3rd. Then we play the G, which is the 5th, on the 5th fret of the 4th. Down to the natural B, which is the major 7th, on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. And then we play a little bar here with the 1st finger, and that covers on the 3rd fret, and that covers the D and the G. This G here is repeated, so we don't even have to play it, but I like how it rounds it out a little bit more. And so the root for this chord would be C. And we're assuming that it's understood within the harmonic context of whatever you're playing, that you're in C. And for the final position, we're moving up to the 8th fret of the 6th string, and of course this is a C, this is the root, and we place this big bar on the 8th fret, and then we just add a couple of fingers and we're done. All right, so we have C on the 8th fret of the 6th string, we have G on the 10th fret of the 5th, and then we have the major 7th B on the 9th fret of the 4th string. And now we play the next two strings with the bar, and we have E flat, which is the minor 3rd, and G, which is the 5th again. And then let's add the 9th with the little finger on the 10th fret of the 1st string. And this is the one we looked at before, so you already know what it sounds like. And it's a very common position for this chord because it's quite easy to play, and it sounds pretty full and complete. And so it's certainly one of the better choices for the minor 9 major 7th chord. There are two scales that are pretty obvious and simple choices for this chord, and they are the harmonic minor and the melodic minor. And the idea here is that the minor 9 major 7th chord we can kind of look at in the beginning as a minor 9th chord. And for that chord we could actually use the regular natural minor scale. But the chord now has a raised or major 7th. So we need some kind of scale that is minor but also has a major 7th. And the first one, of course, that comes to mind is the harmonic minor scale. Why? Well, because it was designed to do just that. It was designed to take a very static and bland scale, such as the minor scale. You see, it doesn't really want to go anywhere. It's very comfortable where it is. And somebody thought of the idea of saying, hey, we should probably do something so that it kind of wants to go back to the root, wants to start some kind of dominant function somewhere along the line, and so that it's not as static as it is now. And so it was designed with a raised 7th, because that raised 7th is borrowed from the major scale, and it does indeed want to go back to the root, and it sounds like this. So you hear this very strong pull now towards the root, and it comes from raising the 7th from minor to major to this effect. Okay, so now that I have this scale, I can of course use it on top of the minor major 7th chord. And indeed, if we play a minor 9 major 7th, this is the scale. There you go. And you see it works perfectly. The problem with the harmonic minor is that it has a very strange sounding interval between the 6th and the major 7th, which is 1.5 steps. And it can sound a bit like a caricature. And it can sound a bit like the solution to a problem that now is worse than the problem, because it's so easy to identify and so in your face. And so another scale was devised to kind of tone it down a little bit, and that's the melodic minor scale. And the melodic minor scale says, okay, well, let's get rid of that big jump there of 1.5 steps by also raising the 6th. So now we raise. See, I broke it down, that big 1.5 jump, into 2 whole steps. And what effectively happens here is that you're actually playing almost a major scale, but with a minor 3rd. We will get into that. You know, there's going to be some other series for scales, but the idea here is that now we have another scale that also has a minor connotation. It has a major 7th, but it sounds just a little bit mellower and a little bit more musical maybe. And so over this chord again, this would be the scale. Okay, so it does sound a bit more sophisticated, maybe a bit more jazzy or fusiony. I don't know what you want to call it. And I tend to like more the melodic minor for melodies, and I like the harmonic minor for accents. So maybe I'm doing a very quick run, like that. And so I like the strong resolution of the harmonic minor. It's not ambiguous at all. It's really obvious and really, I don't know. It's really not in your face in a bad way, but you know, it's strong musically. Whereas the melodic minor, that's why it was designed, it's a bit mellower and it's a bit more subtle. And so both of them are really cool. And because this chord, I think, is actually a cool chord to improvise over, I think you can find some really good melodies with it. Then I would probably start with the melodic minor, if you want my advice. If not, just try both of them. I hope that you like this chord, and I think probably you didn't even know it existed, but I do suggest you study it and you work on it, because even though it's a bit strange and it has kind of an intimidating name, it is a very musical chord. And when paired with these 2 scales that I showed you, I think you can get some really great sounds out of it. And because it's not common, you know, you will kind of set you apart. And it's certainly something worth adding to your toolbox. Other than that, I do think next week will be the final video of this series, because I can think of other chords, but usually they're just different names for chords that we already looked at, and some chords that are just way too out there. And so I want this series to be useful, and I think with all the chords that we looked at, you'll be pretty much set. And then of course you can explore further. When you have this knowledge of chords, nothing can stop you. You can go and add or take out notes. You can do whatever you want. So I think next week with the dominant alter chords, the one chord a week series will come to an end, but don't worry about it. We'll do something else and we'll find some other cool stuff to learn. If you enjoyed this series and the videos, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting. It really helps out and I really appreciate it. So I will see you next week with what might be the final video of this series, but we'll try not to be sad. Bye bye.